Hello and welcome to our channel, Tech Expert Tutorials. Today we are going to show you how to create Postgres databases in the AWS console. Then we will show you how to create databases and tables in Python. Next, we will insert data into that table. We will show you how to query from that table. Finally, we will delete the database and table from AWS. Let's get started. First, we need to create the Postgres database. So we've opened up the console. You can either type in Postgres or RDS. We're going to create the database. So click that button. We select the Create Standard, then select Postgres. We'll keep the default version. I'm going to select Free Tier. I won't change database instance name. And you can see by selecting Free Tier, there's only a few options available here. The one that we selected has 2 virtual CPUs and 1 GB of RAM, and then a small network capacity. I'll leave 20 GB for the allocated storage. I need to turn off auto scaling. I'll leave these alone. I want public access. This makes it easier for the demo. I'm going to set up password authentication. Need to select an initial database name. Here you can see your estimated monthly costs. Most of this is coming from the database instance. I'll be deleting this later so I don't incur any of these costs. Now I'm ready to click the Create Database button. This may take a few minutes, just keep hitting refresh. I'm going to hide the add-ons, I don't want to see those. After hitting refresh a few times, the status will change. Status is showing that it's still working on creating the database. It's just configuring the enhanced monitoring at this point. It's not ready yet. Okay, now it says it's available. Now we need to get the endpoint. We'll be using this later in our script. Next, I'm going to show you the Python script. You need to install 2 packages. One is for Postgres, the other one is for AWS called Boto3. You can use content to install. Once those 2 packages have been imported, you can set up the connection string. The host is equal to the endpoint that you copied earlier, default port, database name, user and password from earlier. After that is set up, you'll be connecting to the database. I like to use auto commit. That way I don't have to keep committing on every individual statement. Then I create a cursor. I have some sample SQL for creating a database. I execute, and then I have a create table statement also. Then I'm going to execute the create table statement. I'll be inserting some data using the insert query here. Has some fields and values. I execute that query. Next I'm going to select to see what data has been inserted. Execute that. And finally, I run a fetch all to get the data back. Here I'm dropping the database for cleanup and then executing that statement. Now we're ready to run the code. You can see there's an error already, duplicate table. So I'm going to change the table name and run this again. In this case, it says the database already exists, so I'm going to go ahead and drop that and try running this one more time. You can see the data came back, so it looks like the data was inserted and then the select statement ran. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and clean up the database from the console. Go under Actions, select Delete, type in Delete Me, click on Delete. I don't need a backup. Once again, you need to hit refresh to see this updating. And we're finished. That's all I have for today. See you next time.